as Sarah was saying earlier, to know quite how to talk about where we are on creativity and so on. And we've had an entire day of people giving us brilliant examples in all sorts of different areas. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how we are gathering together some of those examples, and there will be a few, I hope, examples coming up on the screen. And I'm not going to tell you what they are, so you're all going to have to guess as we go through. But if you really want to know what these examples are, you will be clicking through onto the QR code and finding them in our new report on heritage creativity. So, we all know, and if we didn't before, we do now after today's event, how much creativity is inspired by and builds on heritage. But I think the whole idea still sounds quite surprising to some people. Creative creates, surely. Heritage preserves, or saves, or remembers, but creates? And that's why it's such a timely topic for this year's Heritage Day. The Heritage Alliance's latest report, Heritage Counts 2025, which you can all get sight of ahead of everybody else knowing that it's there in the world, is a wonderful source which builds upon our Inspiring Creativity report, which was published in 2019. And it showcases current examples of the ways in which heritage and creativity go hand in hand. Examples which might surprise even some of us in the room today. Because creativity, of course, covers as wide a field as heritage itself. And the ways in which we can be creative are constantly evolving. I love the fact that Baroness Twycross mentioned Pokemon this morning. And developments in gaming technology allow whole new uses of heritage sites and stories as the basis for online adventures. So let's have a look at some examples of how heritage sites are being used by creative groups. And I'm going to be quite shameless. I'm going to pick up on all sorts of places that those of you in the room will know, or many of you will be involved with. So the Great Unlisted Peace Hall in Halifax was the only surviving Georgian cloth hall in the world. It has a 66,000 square feet open air courtyard. Just try and imagine what you would do with that. Those of you that have open air performance spaces, 66,000 square feet. And it hosts world-class music events and also works with volunteers to interpret that place to visitors and has brought an extraordinary resurgence in activity and life in that part of Halifax. The Old Royal Naval College in Greenwich, put in especially for Duncan, has seen more than 200 film and TV productions. Film and TV is a big thing for a lot of our sector in terms of engaging and being creative with wider audiences. I particularly remember visiting Hampton Court the day after there'd been some filming, and I noticed an unusual fragrance of horse, as there had been all sorts of horsey goings on in one of the big courtyards there. And as Andrew mentioned this morning, the tower itself continues to be a wonderful site for art installations and activities of all kinds, from poppies to Lux Moralis. And I guess that if I were to ask you all to think about the performances that have lingered longest in your mind, I would bet that at least some of them were so special because of the venue. It might have been on the Cornish coast in an open-air theatre. It might have been in the Royal Albert Hall. It might have been on the York Moors. It might have been following things through along Hadrian's Wall. Whitby has all sorts of exciting attachments as well, which people will come across with goths and all kinds of people loving that place for different reasons. So the backdrop often is what creates the specialness of the atmosphere. So what else can we share with other people about this wonderful heritage creativity that we're so aware of? Well, I think we need to be really clear with people that we are building the future with heritage as well. So the Yorkminster Centre of Excellence for Heritage Craft Skills, which has already been mentioned today, is keeping traditional skills alive and investing in the next generation of craftspeople. Chawton House's embroidery exhibition, inspired by literature and nature, is an example of heritage inspiring new design and sustaining skills, with the Royal School of Needlework, which itself is hosted at Hampton Court. I promise I won't just use HI. And more broadly, heritage creates so many more benefits, from homes and enterprises to community cohesion, which we have heard about in great, passionate detail today. I did love the way that passion kept coming through, and it was a word that people picked up on again and again. I would venture to suggest that no one goes into heritage because they want to be a multi-millionaire, possibly. But I think most people move into heritage, whether in their paid capacity or as volunteers, because they care about something. And they care about something which connects them, roots them to their community by helping them understand the past. So, as a sector, we know about heritage as a creator. But what is it that makes it so successful? I think it's that emotional connection. I think it's the fact that heritage creates joy. And even when heritage is difficult and complex and challenging, engaging with it has the capacity to create joy. Whether it's working through a difficult area, a difficult subject, and coming out the other end and feeling an understanding and an engagement. Heritage moves people, and it holds personal meaning for all of us. I remember one of the small projects that I first came across at the Heritage Lottery Fund, as it was then, was looking at a maternity hospital in one of the London boroughs that was closing down. And it was a borough which people said, it's not got any heritage, there's nothing here, we don't have any heritage. And then they started talking to the people who had mums and grands who'd been born in that maternity hospital, and connecting them with their stories and getting them to go and talk to their mums and their grands. And that sort of creative way of thinking about what it is, building things to people, really, really connects emotionally and is brilliant at connecting generations. And we saw this more than ever during the pandemic, when people chose heritage sites as the settings for their social reunions and personal escape. We're always finding new and dynamic ways to engage audiences. The Immersive Experiences Partnership between the National Trust and Algenet, and between Lux Morales and dozens of cathedrals and abbeys. There is something incredibly special about standing and watching those light shows and hearing the sounds in such wonderful places. It's also universally popular, and I think we shouldn't fool ourselves about this. 7 out of 10 are most popular paid attractions are heritage sites, and every single one of our top 20 free attractions are heritage sites. And because of that emotional engagement, heritage helps create well-being. Engagement with heritage and arts is beneficial for our health. We've got the evidence, and we know that it can help with public health priorities. The Chronicles of Greyfriars creative wellbeing project on the Suffolk coast has really generated tremendous benefits for the community there. And they carry added value. See the personal transformations reported by young people participating in the Wentworth Woodhouse Creative Producers Programme. I have to pause for a moment. I'm sure many people will know that Julie Kenny, who was deeply associated with Wentworth Woodhouse, that's very recent. And I just wanted to pause there because Julie was an astounding example of how one individual can be so bloody minded and determined to make heritage special for her place and to save it and to use it in a way that brought the community together. And we'll be talking about some other people who've got similar commitment later on this afternoon. We reckon that around just under 200 million is saved by the NHS through reductions in GP appointments each year as a result of heritage site visits. And Historic England research found last year that the annual wellbeing value of everyday heritage is 29 billion. That's a B, not an M, a billion. So when we ask why heritage creates, the answer is simple, because people are drawn to it, they enjoy it, they're moved by it, and inspired to create. The economic value of heritage to the creative industries has been well established, and our evidence base is growing. Since new ideas need old buildings, I've been around long enough to have come across one or two of those sorts of reports, we're building on the evidence again and again and again. We mustn't be apologetic about the evidence. It's there, we know it, we know how to use it. Creative industries are more likely to operate out of listed buildings. There's a 4.4% increase in GBA generated by businesses in listed buildings, and 26% of creative enterprises are located in conservation areas, which is, I think the Minister said this morning, only cover 2% of the area, so that's not a bad ratio. And new Historic England research has shown that heritage is directly linked to higher productivity and growth in new creative enterprises. And the government's recognition of this with its £270 million cultural infrastructure funding announced last month to invest in repairing the foundations of our creative economy, our heritage is a real bonus. And I've now had the opportunity to hear the Secretary of State speak twice about her commitment to creativity and our sectors. And it comes across with passion and with real depth of enthusiasm, and she talks very clearly about personal experiences and about the experiences that she wants to see shared for everyone, everywhere. And I think, looking at the National Trustee there, I do think it's absolutely essential for all of us in this room to be clear that we are not putting up our arms around places that we love and care for in order to keep people out. We want to be creating places where people come in and exercise their own creativity and their own engagement with heritage. So we know that we can see heritage in every constituency and community, a resource that everyone can benefit from. The most sustainable and effective way of creating growth is to invest in what we've already had. I thought the panel on housing this afternoon was absolutely fascinating, and we really must see what we can do to help make things easier, reduce the friction. That was a useful word from Martin. The importance of cross-sector collaboration has again come through again and again today. I don't know about you, but I was nearly crying when Sarah was talking about her examples earlier on. We know that if we collaborate with creative folk, and they might be 5 or they might be 95, if we collaborate with one another and if we collaborate with the authorities in our local areas, we can create towns and cities that really boost the well-being of our communities and the growth that we all need in order to be able to afford to do the things that we want to do. So heritage creates, but it's the people who create based on heritage, and supporting and sustaining our volunteers, our skills and the next generation is fundamental to keeping the good work going. The importance of continued cross-sector collaboration can't be overstated, and I think sometimes we apologise for stating the obvious, but we shouldn't apologise for stating the obvious, because sometimes people forget. Collaborate, and then allow creativity to thrive. So what I would like to ask you to do, all of you here, is to use that QR code, engage with our new report, continue the conversation, and continue it by sharing your stories and linking your stories to the creativity that we see right across the sector, and help us to find new ways of helping people understand that heritage is creativity, and creativity needs